What's chillin' YouTube? This is Davis or D Helen C, and I'm back with another video. You guys were really receptive of our definitive monster tier list, and so we had to bring back the weapons tier list because we've got a lot of thoughts on this, right, Aiden? Government guy?
Of course. Of course.
Okay. We've got different tier lists, and I've got different tiers, but all the same weapons. They didn't change from Rise to Sunbreak, and I've got SS at the top, of course, the Deep Sea Blue, and then Despicable at the bottom, because if you use that weapon, I despise you. What are your tier lists structured as?
I just got SS to D.
Very boring, but it is what it is. Okay, you want to start us off? I've got Greatsword as the first one.
Greatsword is an SS tier weapon. Now, with the new counter, it felt like just a heavier hitting longsword, but that's because I was actually trash with the weapon.
Agreed.
And now I'm God tier, and it is amazing. You're actually hitting for like 5k a hit, even more on wake ups. It's insane. I know you don't use the Greatsword because you don't have big enough balls, but it's an SS tier weapon.
Oh, mine are gigantic. That's why I use the weapon that I'll mention later on. But here's my thing about the Greatsword. I played Elden Ring, and unlike you, I didn't use an OP build. I used the Guts Greatsword, the Gut Sword from Berserk, and I used that up to level 70, I want to say, which just goes to show how massive my kahunas are. And
yeah, you're literally whining at every boss, like, dude, why is this so hard?
no, I was cheering when I beat Margaret after 4 hours, but the point is, I know a lot about big weapons, and some reason I don't run this weapon. I want to say it's because, like, the great thing about Monster Hunter, but also the bad thing, is how in-depth the mechanics are, because it makes one weapon take 500 hours to mastery. For me, normally 10, but for an average player, something along those lines. And so it's a bit daunting for me to try out a new weapon, which is why there's some that I haven't. And the Greatsword is one of those that I think I would like, except it just feels like there's a lot of setup that has to require to get those hits. Like, especially in Sunbreak, you gotta use the barrel and counter the barrel. You have to set traps.
There is a lot of setup for the counters, but you're forgetting about Surge Slash combo, which I forgot to mention, is another amazing addition to the Greatsword, because it's just faster attacks that do more DPS than the regular charge combo. If the counter didn't exist, then Surge Slash would just be better. And you can mix and match the moves in the middle of the combo, and it's amazing.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one, but I think I've seen people use it. And look, before on my old script of this weapons, I had it in B tier because it was a weapon that I would consider playing, and I didn't want to place it any lower because I didn't necessarily hate it, and I didn't want to place it any higher because I never played it. But now, if we're just doing sort of a subjectively objective tier list as they always are, I'm willing to throw it in S, because I do think if I were to play it and master it, it would be a lot of fun. Big nummies are fun. Beating the shit out of a monster and knocking him out is fun, and nothing can beat sort of you trying really hard for 30 seconds to get one big hit off and finally getting that hit off. So I'm willing to put it in S tier, even though I've never touched it. Also, are we doing this in a way as there's going to be some debates on like weapons that are OP and not, but are we kind of like rating these on how good they are too? Like, is this like it's S tier as in it's super good, or S tier just as in likability, play style, everything else, or a combination of everything?
Combination of everything.
Mm-hmm. I'd say it's probably an S tier as well for how useful it is and how good it is in the meta.
Yeah, we can break that down.
Okay.
What's your next weapon? Because we don't have the same.
Oh, I'll let you do the next one. It's the hammer. Or should we put it off?
You know what? I'm making a new tier at the very top called Hammer tier. Fucking Hammer tier. Hammer is actually amazing. The only thing holding it back in Rise was that you hit the massive bonks on the head, but then you had to go back, charge up for like 2 to 3 seconds, or dodge out of the way because water step is literally the slowest counter in the game, and it's actually kind of god
False.
awful.
False. Go ahead.
Yeah, you haven't even played the hammer. Anyway,
I've seen it.
water step is not the greatest, but now the impact burst, that's fine. That's great. You get a little more stun damage and a little more damage.
Is that the one that was in the trailer?
Yeah, where he spins the hammer.
Yeah, that one's.
That one's fine. But the other two, they make this weapon so much cleaner, so much smoother. With charge spinning bludgeon, you can literally go from yellow or normal charge level 3 to strength charge level 3, and then switch back to normal charge level 3, and then just keep doing that. You can be in their face constantly. And on top of that, you have Blood Right, which is amazing on the hammer, and it heals you every time you do it. You literally never have to leave the monster's nutsack, because you're going to be pounding it the entire time.
I need to change underwear.
You really do. I need to change underwear every time I play this weapon, because it just feels so smooth.
I need to.
And
go ahead. Keep going.
And the other bad part about the hammer, there was one where it's like you had to wait and charge up. You couldn't go from charge level 3 to charge level 3 all the time. That's fixed with charge spinning bludgeon. And the slow ass counter, the slow ass iframes, that's fixed with keeping sway. And it just fits so perfectly together. And the best builds are running, or at least the best build that I found was Blood Right plus Dereliction. So the Dereliction doesn't even matter, and you're healing yourself anyway, and you get more stun power and raw. It's perfect. It's perfect. I absolutely love what they did with it. Good, hats off to you, Capcom. Hats off.
I respect your technical analysis on this weapon. That is very respectful and tippable.
Hold on. I didn't listen to a thing you said. I was adding the hammer tier. You know what? We're adding it 2 tiers above everything else.
That makes sense. So, I don't have one because I'm not a caveman, but one thing about the hammer that I do appreciate is when you watch a speed run, like when I only watch them at Base Rise, but there's a lot of predictability. Like, people use hammers do have big dicks, and that is true. I don't know, I can't confirm with you, but from what I gauge, I think that's true. And you do have to predict a lot with that water step attack, which I think was very alpha when people could. But like you said, in the new game and Sunbreak, it's fixed a lot of its issues and basically made it meta and relevant and fun to use as opposed to frustrating. And I'm
going to interrupt you right there. It's just so smooth. It is so smooth. It literally makes me pop a chubby every time. Continue.
Makes me pop a skinny. So I'm gonna put this thing in C tier. I loved what you were saying.
You bastard!
I loved what you were saying about it. You really got me going there for a second.
Don't give me that marketer talk.
But the Greatsword is better. Because Guts isn't using a goddamn hammer. When I played Elden Ring, when they have those giant hammer-looking weapons, you know the red ones that I'm talking about? Yeah, they're cool,
Yeah.
and they swing, and they're probably better than the Guts sword itself. But it doesn't look as good. And I feel like I'm swinging around a giant concrete block, as opposed to a giant, well-crafted, ancient sword like the Greatsword. And I know that that's not necessarily supposed to factor into the rankings, but this is my goddamn rankings, and that's how I'm going to factor it in. And
No. This is the definitive. Well,
Yes.
at least mine is.
Yeah, you're right. Mine is a subjectively objective list, so it is correct, and everything I say is true. Also, I forgot to preface this. I forgot if I've already done it, but I've got 400 hours on this game. I think you have more, and so we've nearly got 1,000 hours on this game. So we know what the fuck we're talking about, and if you think that our opinions are wrong, go go check into a hospital because you're wrong. I think that the hammer is C tier because it is slow. I haven't seen the playstyles of it all, but I imagine that the only real satisfying part is when you badonk on the head, which I have seen you do, and that does look fun. But the Greatsword to me just seems better in every single way. The way that it looks from my perspective, the way that people use it, it's. I think. Am I wrong in saying this too? That the hammer doesn't really have a lot of playstyles versus the Greatsword.
You are completely wrong.
Okay.
There's the Bloodright playstyle. There's the Dereliction playstyle.
No, I don't mean like
there's the combined one. There's the paralysis one.
I don't mean builds and elemental. I don't mean like this one weapon works. I'm talking move sets. Like, are you just like with the switch axe that we'll talk about? Is it where now you're only really spamming one move because it's the best DPS option?
No, you pretty much spam the X combo, the A combo. You know what? The hammer's actually pretty in depth compared to the switch axe. At least you're like spamming 3 moves and the longsword, but you can charge up to first tier, hit the monster, and then press X for a charged. I think it's like a charged follow up swing. It's called.
Yeah.
And so you're pretty much doing that one with the X combo, the A combo when they're down and you don't have wire bugs, the impact crater when they're down and you have wire bugs, the charged strength and the charged normal. You're also doing sliding attacks, which is the spinning bludgeon, not the spinning bludgeon, the midair spinning bludgeon, whatever it's called. And you're doing mid-air attacks where you're dropping from a skyscraper on top of their head, charging your hammer the entire time, and swing and hit their head, and then press X at the very end to do a massive follow-up. There's a bunch of different moves, like and you use all of them.
Yeah, you're really selling me on this. You know what? Just because you said that, I'm motivated to put it in despicable tier.
Oh my god!
I'm just kidding. It is a C tier weapon through and through, and it would be despicable, but for the speedrunners and for the in-depth mechanics as you were talking about, as well as the fact that you do use it, and I'll throw some respect on it, I'll put it in C tier.
Wow.
Love
guy. That.
I'm a good guy.
Yeah, okay. Real good guy.
Let's talk about. I've been trying to find the moves on this, but I mean, you'd think after I played it for 300 hours, I would know what they're called. But I've got dual blades next as mine. Do you have the same?
No, but I can go dual blades.
Okay. So
I'll start off while you're trying to find those moves.
Yeah.
So dual blades. I mean, you got a counter. Yeah. That lasts forever. Is 360 degrees. Makes you pretty safe. I mean, you even got iframes in Demon Flight. It's a safe weapon, but you gotta respect the hammer play style of always being in their face. So we're gonna throw it in a solid C tier.
Go fuck yourself.
No, I'm fucking with you. I'm fucking
Trip on the sidewalk and have your teeth get curb stomped. Listen, this weapon, guys. Aiden said hammer tier, and I'm not gonna be as weird about that thing. It is SS. And it's the only SS. I'll go ahead and spoil that for you guys, okay? This is the only SS, and the only deserved SS. I'll go ahead and
You're just straight up wrong. You're just straight up wrong.
I'll go ahead and tell you why. When I first put Aiden on Monster Hunter, and myself onto it, I was looking up the weapon guides. And there wasn't a good one, and that's why we're making this right now, but there wasn't really a good one that told you what it would be like. But one guy did say that if you use this dual blades, and you use Demon Flight and roll down his back, you're kind of like Levi from Attack on Titan. And I know you guys can't see my anime videos because they're private, and you don't know a lot about it, but Attack on Titan is my #1 show. Not live action. And Peak Fiction, Levi is an amazing character, and when someone told me I could play like Levi, I just knew this had to be the weapon for me. And it is. It's arguably the fastest. I'd probably say the fastest. Aiden always likes to joke that, oh, you get a wire bug, you get a counter every 3 seconds, 5 seconds. First off, that's not true. That's not true at all. It's not every 3 seconds.
You have pretty much, you have
It's
No,
not
no, no.
gonna.
Listen to this. You have a counter that not only is a movement skill, it's iframes, it's damage, and I mean that's pretty much it. But that single handedly makes it the best counter in the game, except for maybe counter peak performance or whatever,
Okay.
or any one of the 7 counters that the
I'm gonna
longsword
need
has.
to embarrass you really quick. First off, you don't get this wire bug every 5 seconds. And as a matter of fact, if you use it other than the counter, which sometimes you're gonna do, your recovery on it is a lot longer. So let's say you just use it to dash away, or you use it to try and counter and it doesn't counter, but it gets you away from the attack. Your recovery rate on it is a lot slower. So that's the first
And
thing.
I would love to see you go from that counter to the water step, and then come back here and talk to me.
So, anyways, that's the first issue we have to address. The second is this: Shrouded Vault is my favorite counter in the entire game. It is. It is so satisfying, and that to me is why it honestly is probably number one. At first, it was because you could fly down the back and everything, and that was just because I was kind of an amateur when I played. But nowadays, it's the fact that I can counter using that. Because a lot of these weapons, I'll judge them on how well you can counter and how satisfying it is. And Dual Blades has the most satisfying counter. Your counter in this weapon, your goal is to be in their face in the attack. You want to absorb the attack, and you want to be right on their face, or a crit spot. And so every time you have this counter up, Shrouded Vault, you are basically sticking your dick down the monster's throat, absolutely demolishing their attacks. Magnamala has his Vortex Cannon, you're going right into that, and you're trying to hit his face off at the same time. Valstrax has his Dive Bomb, you're countering right into that. Every single time a monster is about to, bend you over a barrel, you do the same to them with this kind of counter. And that is just an extremely satisfying playstyle. The other thing about it, too, is this. You're playing these weapons super fast, and a real good Dual Blades player is a lot more different than a real good bow player, or a real good hunting horn player, or whatever else. Because
Man,
you
you should really see the new bow play style.
because you require a lot it requires a lot of skill, reaction time, and just knowledge to execute a lot of these moves. Because yes, you do get it up kind of frequently and stuff, but if you're really gonna DPS combo and you're really gonna style on monsters, you're basically countering every single move. And the iframes, or the frames for the Shrouded Vault, are not that long. Not as long as a lot of other weapons. And so it's not necessarily like instant move, and you don't have a lot of iframes like an advanced round slash on an insect leg would be, but it's very short. And so you basically have to constantly counter monsters perfectly over and over again and stay in their face. And it's an aggressive play style. We haven't even touched on the other stuff. I mean, they added in the anime Spiral Slash, which is a shame, a shame that it is not hyper armor or super armor or a counter itself. Like, it probably would be OP if it was. And now that I've learned to like Demon Flight and use it, or use it in different ways, it is workable. But it is tragic that it's not any of those things. Still a super sick looking move and very satisfying, and it's a move that can guaranteed sort of knock monsters down, which is really nice. Piercing Bind, they upgraded it a lot. It's a lot faster now, but I still liked it before because it made Dual Blades really good weapons for Wyvern riding, because you could get them in that mode easily, as well as just if you wanted to break certain parts of a monster, this was the way to go. But it just wasn't very stylish. Tower Vault, I never use, so we're not going to touch on that. And there's a couple of other things with Dual Blades that I like of course, the Demon Flight. You can't. That's the most satisfying thing in the game. You're just flying up. Then, of course, if you go through the back or the body of the monster and you're doing the whole Levi spin slash, like you're cutting the Beast Titan, it is absolutely orgasmic. So there's a lot of things that I love about the Dual Blades, and it also has multiple play styles. Like, yes, there's max DPS combos for it, but there's lots of play styles that you can make if you just want to have fun. Like, you can do, for instance, like I did with Duratidos, where he's constantly on the ground like a little slimy snake, and I switch off Demon Flight, and I do the whole Feral Demon mode, and I do the side slash combo, and I'll basically just skirt around him on skates the entire time, just slashing him the entire way, even though I'm just dodging attacks. And there's that playstyle. There's Demon Flighting and then coming down and doing DPS off that. There's Demon Flighting and going down the back. I mean, there's just a ton of different playstyles with it. You style in the monster over and over again. It's the quickest playstyle. You're constantly in the monster's face. It is perfect for me. It's perfect for a lot of people. And I also, of course, with Sunbreak, it's gotten massively buffed with the elemental damage and everything. But I still think it's not overly OP, and it never was bad, and it never has been the best. But I think it's in a great spot where anyone can use it. But the skill gap for it between a master versus a noob is pretty big, and so for me, it's my only SS tier. It's my most played weapon, and most of my clips are on there. All my favorite hunts are with this weapon, and yeah.
It's probably actually sitting around an A tier for me. I mean, yes, it's good. It's in their face all the time. You got some cool moves, but
Oh, and
I don't know. Those tiny hits just don't do it for me.
one other thing
It just doesn't have a big hit.
I do look. Yes, there are a couple things that people are going to point out about it, and I do agree with those. Like, it's hard to knock monster parts down. Like, you're not necessarily going to be great at cutting tails and cutting legs and everything like that. And you're not necessarily a KO god. Like, you're not going to be KOing monsters very frequently with it. And then, of course, the small numbers. And that's all kind of bad, but I think it's got balances here and there and checks and balances. And so I like the fact that you see a ton of elemental damage flying off the screen. So you're not seeing big numbers, but you're seeing a lot of numbers, and you're seeing them in different element styles. So the other thing, the last thing I want to touch on with the dual blades is the weapons. There are, I mean, Insect Glaive, Longsword, they've got good looking weapons, but I think dual blades, some of the dual blade weapon designs are my favorites. And we know I love the Almudrons because I hunted him the most. I love the Water Orbs. There's so many new weapons too, like the new Geismorgworm weapons, the Alucanth weapons. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there's just so many good looking dual blades as opposed to some other weapons for me that it is so attractive in that way. And
Yeah, it does have some good looking weapons.
Okay.
Although I think the longsword has probably the best looking weapons overall.
But the dual blades, like, you can have one look one way and one look another, whereas longsword is kind of stuck with one blade. So you can
Yeah,
really
that's true.
customize the dual blade a lot. Just like the gun lance. Like, you can have the shield part and the lance part. But anyways, I have Insect Glaive as the next one.
I'll let you go first on this one, man.
Okay. So we already know dual blades is my number one. I played it first. My second weapon was the Insect Glaive. It was very hard to transition, or at least try it out, but I'm glad I did. It isn't necessarily all my playstyle, but it has a good mix. A lot of it's in the air, and you're still trying to be aggressive. What I love the most about it is it's very dangerous, right? So many of these weapons are just pussy playstyles, and there's no skirting around that. The Insect Glaive, you're kind of like throwing yourself out there, especially the way I play, where you do the vault. And let me quickly pull up the soap binds for it. Like, when you do the vault and you sort of stick it up like your avatar and you jump in the air and then you go towards the monster, you could get hit in the middle of that, and then you may not have any wire bugs and get insta-killed. There's just a bunch of embarrassing moments as an Insect Glaive player where you get completely carded by easy monsters or by OP menaces like Valstrax and Magnemol, just because of how exposed you can be in this playstyle and this weapon. And I do love that. The sad part I think about Insect Glaive is that it's still heavily focused on the ground combos, even in Sunbreak. Like, it's a little bit better now, but a lot of the DPS combos and speedrunners will just do on the ground ones, and it's mainly that tornado slash and the ones where you're just sort of spinning the one X combo over and over again. And like, it's okay, but if that's all you're really doing with the Insect Glaive, it's not as fun. I prefer doing all air combat and sometimes doing it on the ground. The Wyvern Dive, where you do straight down and you can cut heads and tails, is super satisfying. Flying around when you have the red bug and doing multiple slashes and just keep going up 3 times in a row is very addicting. And then, of course, they added a bunch of new stuff. I haven't really played this weapon in Sunbreak enough to talk about it, but I do love the Awakened Kinsect attack, the concept of it. You're flying around even more. It's just adding to that play style. And then I've seen some speedrunners use it where you can basically, I want to say, it's not the diving wyvern, but it's one where basically it's an angled wyvern dive. And
yeah, that's after you get the red bug extract and use the Kinsect attack in the air.
Yeah, that's what I figured, but like, that one is also really fun. Like, I've seen Pochi use that, where he'll do a lot of on the ground combos, but then he'll do one where the monster's down and he'll do that 3 times and then finish off with a wyvern dive. And that is just a super fun play style to me, to constantly be doing that to a monster. So I love the Insect Glaive. I don't play it nearly enough, and I probably should, but I'm gonna put it in S tier, and it is just a great weapon. It's my second weapon. It's my baby, and I'm keeping it there.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw this. Well, granted, I don't have an S tier, but I'm throwing this in A tier, just because the air combos are so fun. The Kinsect Yeet move that they added looks so cool, but it is such a shame that the move is just not good, and it replaces Diving Wyvern, which is
That is
literally your highest DPS move
that is tragic.
on the weapon. And like Davis was talking about, the on the ground combos, they're nothing special. The in the air is where it shines, but it's also its biggest downside because if you get smacked by like or just brushed by like the tip of a wing and you go flying, you could possibly die off of just that tiny little hit. And that part just
I love
kind of
doing that
makes
part.
it that part just kind of makes it a little annoying, even though it's the rest of it's super cool. I don't know. It's a really fun weapon, and all these weapons we've talked about are do like a buttload of damage, so
Yeah,
that's not really contention here either.
there's a
But
couple of
it's
things.
just
I'm gonna interrupt you there because before I forget these things, there's a couple of stuff I forgot with Insect Glaive 2. First, it's a very underappreciated weapon. Just like a couple of my favorites that I'm going to talk about. I like the underutilized weapons that have potential that people don't necessarily give a chance. Insect Glaive is one of those where it's not necessarily the fastest killing weapon, and so it wasn't as popular for a lot of people. But I found pride in taking that weapon on. The other thing I didn't like necessarily is that its counter, it really didn't have a counter. The only counter was the advancing round slash mainly, and that one was sick to pull off. Like when I saw Pochi do that against the Valstrax dive bomb, and then I did it first try. I mean, you heard me. I squealed like a girl, but it was seriously super satisfying to hit that because the advancing round slash, it's got such a weird iframe moment in that move, and it's super satisfying to pull off. But other than that, it doesn't have a lot of satisfying counters. And then the other thing too, and I don't know if it's changed in Rise or Sunbreak, it probably has, is the weapon options and sort of the build options. They're very limited in terms of the customization, at least from when I played it. I mainly used like the Nargacuga ones and then like the same sort of armor sets. So that was the only real shame, is that it was like you use the Valstrax weapon and the Valstrax armor, or you use the Nargacuga weapon with the other armors. And yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't really think in Sunbreak there's really, since they made like every weapon have a rank 10, there's not really just one weapon that's so superior to everything else that you're not going to use anything else. I'm pretty sure every weapon has like a few different variants you can use.
Yeah. All right, I've got Lipogun next.
Yeah, we
No.
we both know where
Yeah.
this is going.
Yeah.
D tier.
I have Despicable tier. I kind of don't even want to talk about it, but I need to shit on this weapon before I move on. Like, I just have to absolutely trash this thing. If you use PSA, if you're watching this video and you use a light bow gun as your main, go play Call of Duty. Go play Halo. Go play a fucking FPS. Alright? Because that's what you're doing on this weapon. And not only are you doing that, but you're like using a goddamn ACR from MW2. Do you want to be that broken? I'm not talking Sunbreak right now. I'm talking Rise. Do you want to be that fucking good? Like, do you just want to be OP and just sit there 50 feet away from the fight and spam bullets? Is that a fun playstyle to you? Now, if I have one on my team, I'm happy, because that means we're killing monster faster. But I still don't respect you. I still think you're a loser. And there's just the only cool thing about this weapon to me, and I have literally never even played it, but the only cool thing about this weapon is when they do that silk bind that drags you.
The Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, the Tokyo Drift move. That is a cool move where you're like sliding around and you're shooting at the same time. Like, that's fun, that's immersive. I get that people can do that, and not everyone's just going to be standing there spraying bullets. But to me, we're talking about a monster hunting weapon game, or monster hunting game, and we're not using guns here to do that. We're using melee, in their face weapons. We're not trying to shoot them from a distance like it's 2020. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on this one. Lipogun is kind of just like, it is huge because it's kind of just the weapon you pull out when you don't want to think while hunting and you just want to like kill the monster faster. Maybe you do it when you're just grinding for parts and that's fine, but
Yeah.
But if you're maining this weapon, it's not good looks.
It's not.
I'll say that.
You don't have a girlfriend, that's for sure. And one thing too is if this was a not subjectively objective tier list and we were talking about like powerful, if we were talking about meta weapons, if this was a meta weapon tier list and we were just talking Rise, it's up there in SS. I mean, it's broken. It's really good. But we're not talking about how good the weapon is. We are a little bit. That's important. We're talking about play styles, how you feel when you hunt with the weapon, how you look to others when you hunt with the weapon. And you look like an absolute toddler who just diarrheaed his pants when you play this weapon. It is disgusting. It is disgusting when I see someone use this weapon. I immediately kick them normally nowadays. I don't even want to see them.
Yeah.
We can agree.
I think we can move on from this.
We can agree. Poopy tier. I've got shit all over my mouth thinking about that one. I want to say this is the Switch Axe.
All right, Switch X. Switch X is tough.
It is.
I'm throwing it in A tier. And here's why. Switch X is such a smooth feeling weapon. And it's also a dangerous weapon because you don't have a counter, you don't have anything. Sure, you can throw on Evade Extender 2 and you can dodge out of most of the attacks, but not if you're up in their face constantly, which is always how I play. And the attacks, sure, you're just spamming the one combo, and then sometimes you throw in the 2-stage morph slash just to get more gauge. But you're pretty much just always spamming the trigger, and then the attack, trigger, attack, trigger, and that's it. Which is a downside, but it's not that much of a downside for this weapon. What's really a downside for this weapon, and yeah, I can hear you laughing in the background because you already know what I'm about to say, is that zero-sum discharge is actually a detriment to use it against any difficult monster. I used it against an afflicted Kezu, and I was full health when I started the zero-sum discharge, and I was dead in less than a second.
And guys, I'm tempted. Look, I'm a lazy editor, and I'm not good at it all, so this is basically just going straight to YouTube. But if I did edit it right now when he's talking about that, I would absolutely post that clip that he sent, because it's hilarious.
Oh, I wish you would, because it's actually god-awful. It actually amazes me how Capcom did not add, like, any damage reduction while in zero-sum discharge. They're just like, nah, full brunt, and not only that, you're more susceptible to damage, because anytime the monster moves an inch, you're taking half your health. It's honestly ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
it's getting ridiculous, Capcom. It's getting ridiculous.
It really is. And that's just why it's an A tier. Why it's not an SS. If zero-sum discharge had some damage mitigation on it, it'd be SS. It's smooth, it's aggressive, it has a counter now, which I didn't even talk about, which is amazing. Although you have to charge it up first, but you could still stand there for a while. And the other, or two-stage morph slash is also really good, but the other one's not, really. And it's just everything I want in a weapon. It has a massive hit now, too, with the counter. It's everything I want in a weapon, except for zero-sum discharge. It's just a stain on an otherwise great weapon.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I would say, this was my third weapon I played. I played this third, and I played it for a decent amount. I disagree with the whole smooth thing. Now, I'm sure it's because I didn't play it a lot and Sunbreak's helped it out a lot. But to me, it felt very sloppy. It felt very clunky, sort of switching between axe and sword and, morphing and sort of just like not looking like you're fat feeding everything. And so that didn't feel good, especially being a dual blades player. You just didn't feel as fast. But I'm sure that's because of my lack of skills on it. And the other thing is, I'm
going to interrupt you here. It definitely is, because there is an attack that can move you. Are separate attacks, and each attack can move you in a certain direction. Like, there's a falling backslash with the axe in case you want to get out of there. Like, every attack you can do, you can mix in an attack that moves you with the monster or away. It has some really great gameplay mechanics. It really does.
Okay. Yeah, and to me, like, I used to spam the Invincible Gambit. I thought that was a lot of fun, especially just because when I was playing it, I was really bad and I didn't really know about counters. Like, I don't even think I knew about the Shrouded Vault counter on the dual blades when I played this, because I never used it. But the Invincible Gambit, like, having that massive iframe and the hyper armor was just a huge help, even though it's not really good right now. It's not even meta. But just as a new player, it can be a little bit easy to get into. I think that the Soaring Wyvern Blade is fucking sick, and I wish that was more of the playstyle, because the thing about the Switch Axe is there could be a lot of playstyles to it, like the zero-sum discharge, on-the-ground combos, Soaring Wyvern Dive, Invincible Gambit. Like, there's a bunch of different moves and options and tools available to you, but the fact of the matter is you're never going to use most of them, and
you definitely can use most of them, and a lot of the playstyles aren't that much worse. Sure, you're always going to see a speedrunner doing the same basic combo, because that's just the fastest way to do it, but it's not that much worse to use any other combo.
It's the same thing as the Insect Glaive, where it's like you can still do in the air combos, but most people are going to do on the ground for DPS, and that is a shame. But I do agree and disagree with my own takes that yes, like, you can use other options, because at the end of the day, when you're playing these weapons, most of the time, unless you're using like a heavy bowgun right now, you're not doing them to hunt the monsters fast. You're doing them because the entire hunt should be fun and you like how you use the weapon. And so if you're using the Switch Axe, you don't necessarily have to do what I've seen speedrunners do in Sunbreak, where it's like you're just sitting there left and righting with the Switch or with the axe or whatever it is, where they're just dropping file damage and KOing the monster and just sitting there on the ground doing nothing. Like, that to me is one of the most boring playstyles I've ever seen in my life. And you don't have to do that, because that's just a speedrunner trying to get 2-minute times. If you want to use Invincible Gambit or style on the zero-sum discharge and get killed off of it and laugh with your friends, like, that's super cool. So I do appreciate that about the Switch Axe, and that's why I have it in A tier myself, because I do think it's a great weapon. It's good. It's got a lot of... It's just like the dual blades for me, where it's a good entry point for a lot of people. It's not too overly complicated, but it is overly complicated when you actually dive into it, and you can get a lot out of it. And I think it's really good in Sunbreak as well. So
yeah, the Switch Axe has some really good DPS with elemental files in Sunbreak.
Mm-hmm. Hunting Horn.
Hunting Horn. I got this one. Shout out to all the Hunting Horn players who heal me when I'm in the monster's face, beating their ass. But this is a B tier weapon. It's not anything more, it's not anything less. The new switch skills, the one where you explode the bead or whatever it's called, it's okay, but if the monster moves away, it's like you just hit nothing. The other new one where it adds the shockwave to each one, it's like the hammer one, maybe better or worse. I don't know, but it's just not that great. Although the dereliction builds, the dereliction potential on this weapon is actually insane. If you get a one that heals, you can run dereliction, not ever have to worry about your health draining, and you're going to be doing some actually insane damage. as well. With the extra knockout power from dereliction as well, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a beat. It's a average weapon. Although I love I love when I see a hunting horn player hop into my lobby.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with 69% plus 31% of that. It is a amazing support weapon. Okay, our friend Avi runs it. My best friend Avi runs it, and you know, I used to play Smite, regrettably, and anytime I saw an Aphrodite or a Hell or just a healer on a team, it doesn't even have to be on the enemy team. Even if I had one of those losers on my team, I got ticked off. Because, I mean, what are you doing in your life to play the fucking side character, right? We're all trying to be the main characters, protagonists of these stories. Some antagonists, some villains like myself. And to me, the hunting horn is a side character. You're never the main focus of the hunt. Like you're the guy that or girl that brings everyone together, and you're the nurse that heals us up while we lay down the damage and get the highlights ourselves. We get the style, and you get to support our style. I will never turn down a hunting horn player in my hunts. It's probably one of the only weapons that I'm like, fuck yes. Well, right now it's the heavy bowgun. Like if I can get that guy in my quest, absolutely. But if I get a hunting horn player, I get a little bit of a smile on my face because I'm like, yeah, I mean, you guys are sacrificing a lot for me to be able to succeed, and I appreciate that. So I had it immediately in B tier. That's exactly what I was thinking. Where, like meta-wise, it's not even that bad. Like you could go multiple play styles, which is really good for Obby and for a lot of people, I'm sure. Where you can focus on healing, you can focus on weird skills like earplugs or sharpness management. You can focus on damage and DPS combos. You can play it a lot of different ways, and most ways are going to help the team anyways. There's a couple of things that bring it down. Of course, you're healing people, your side character, like nobody wants to be that, so it would be lower. But Obby does play it, as well as the fact that this was going to be a bad thing. I don't know what the move is because I don't know any single hunting horn moves, but whatever that fucking move is that hits you off when you're like nearby them, you know what I'm talking about? Like when Obby spams that shit. Whatever that move is, go fuck yourself, okay? Because I don't know how many times, it's like a 70% chance this happens to me every single hunt with a hunting horn player, where I'm carving somebody and this dipshit starts spamming that move to knock me over. And it's like, do you have a life, kid? Do you have a life to be fucking aggravating me like that? Because I host most of my quests, and I'm at the point now where if somebody pulls that stun on me, even if it's accidentally and we just beat the monster and everyone's trying to succeed and grab their fucking rewards and take their money, they're getting kicked if they do that shit to me, okay? Because that is tilting, and I know that there are some weapons that'll do that, and we will talk about it, but specifically on the hunting horn, when I have like this healing weapon doing that to me, it feels like a little bit of a slap in the face. So I will keep it in B tier because it does provide value to the team, but it'll never be higher, it'll never be lower for me, I think.
Yep.
Lance. So
You took this one immediately.
yeah, because here's the thing about the Lance. It is, but if you were watching this and you have no idea about Monster Hunter and you hear about the Lance, you might have some bad things to say about it. You might be hearing what the community says, hearing what people say, like, oh, it's bad speed run times, oh, it's boring, oh, it's super defensive, it's not this, it's not that. False. Incorrect. You do not pass go and collect $200 because this weapon is fun. All right, I gave it a chance and I actually liked it. I have not played it in Sunbreak yet, but it will only enhance my experience of it. I think that this weapon is a lot of fun. Now, it's not very diversified in its playstyle, but the playstyle it has is a ton of fun. Where basically you have the insta-block move, right? Where you press the R trigger and it is like, Sunbreak, they've expanded the framing on it, but before, it was the smallest time frame. I mean, it was, I don't know what, 1 frame or whatever it was, but it was instantaneous. If you didn't press that insta-block at the exact moment, you got hit by it. And so, and there was no the issue with that move is like there was no real follow up. Like you hit it, and then it automatically did a 1-2 kind of hit combo for like 150 damage or 220 damage. It wasn't shit, but it was still super satisfying to see that counter pull off and like see the colors and the effects of it, and then do that little tiny 1-2 hit combo. Pulling that move off was super satisfying. I tried so long, not really, but I tried to do the Valstrax dive bomb against it, but I don't think it works. I've got too many times of me getting absolutely ass clapped by Valstrax dive bomb while trying to execute that move, and I don't think it's possible, unfortunately. But if it was, goddamn, this weapon could be S tier immediately. I have this weapon in a B tier, and it's this one's kind of hard to place. Like I really don't know where to place it, but there's things I like to talk about. Like we already touched on the insta block. It's very defensive, yes, but in the actual button combos, like it's mainly just poke poke poke, and then you have the XA combo where he kind of does a bat swing. There's not a lot of in-depth button combos, but the playstyle where you're using the, let me find it real quick. Let me find it. Oh, it's not going to be there, I don't think. Is it? It's a spiral thrust. So like spiral thrust is basically the bread and butter of this weapon. And you'll see speedrunners use it all the time, even in Sunbreak. And yes, it's pretty much the main move that most people use, but it's still super fun because there's a lot of different interactions you get with the spiral thrust, and there's a lot of different ways you can play it and basically master it. So it is one of the only combos that you're going to be using, but it's got a lot of, I guess, experience to keep using it, and like you can play a lot with it before getting tired. And it's super fun to use. You just go back and forth and go for the head or go for the tail, and there's a lot of ways to finesse it. And as I said, just a lot of interesting interactions when you use Spiral Thrust. It's a great DPS combo as well, so it's good for killing monsters fast and breaking parts. Anchor Rage is interesting, but it didn't really work out for me. Twin Vine is absolutely atrocious. Like, that is a dog shit Silkbind skill. It is, I don't know about Sunbreak, but in Rise it was two wire bugs, and all it did was attach to them and basically draw attention towards you, and then if you pressed whatever button to basically activate, you would jump towards them, which was kind of a cool like moment when you launched yourself towards them, but you literally did nothing. I think you could do, the heaviest hitting combo was the A combo where you just did like one hit on him for 40 damage. It was pathetic. And so that one was a real bummer. And then Skyward Thrust I think is amazing. The only issue I have with it is that it's not a counter. It's sort of like the Dual Blades new weapon, the Spiral Slash or whatever, where it's very cool looking. It's
This guy wants to add a counter to every move.
Well, at least for the Lance. I get the Dual Blades, like that would be broken.
But the Lance has a shield, and it has insta block, and it has shield rush or shield bash.
It does do that, but maybe like take it off of something else and put it on there, or make it to where it's super tiny iframes to where it's super hard to pull off, or like it's heavy armor or something. I just think that...
Yeah, if it was heavy armor, I could understand that.
Because to me, it's like the Metsu in a way. It looks just like the Metsu, the way that you go straight up and down, but you can't really do that right in front of a monster's face unless they just run up to you and then kind of stare at you. Because every time you want to do it right on their head, you're not going to be able to. It's going to hit you in the moment of you trying to do it. So that is the only disappointment with the Skyward Thrust, but I still think it looks fucking amazing. And again, there's like the there's the choo-choo train move where you basically just chase the monsters and you speed up each time, and that's funny. There's just so much going on with it. The playstyle doesn't really change too much. You're mainly just using that on-the-ground Spiral Thrust combo, but I do think that it can be a lot of fun for people. And even though it's not the best performing weapon or the most popular, I still want to put it B tier for me.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm throwing it in B tier as well. So when I first started Monster Hunter, it was like everybody dogging on the Lance, saying it's the worst, saying it's the most boring, nothing redeeming about it. And I thought that way for a while, and then my best friend convinced me, his name is Abby, to play it. And yeah. And it was actually pretty fun with the choo-choo train one, and the new moves look pretty cool, and the play styles, like you're always in their face, but you're always behind a giant shield and you're not doing that much damage. It's definitely a lot better than what everybody said it was, but it's nothing amazing where you're gonna cream. Well, some people might. I could definitely see how some people would really enjoy this weapon, but I'm definitely not creaming my pants like when I use the hammer.
Yeah, like I think most people, if they have no idea about a weapon, they just looked a bunch of lists from people who don't know what they're talking about, who don't have 4 hours in this game. They would see it in like the D tier or just trash tier, and I would have done the same thing until I actually played it. And it is great when you play it, but even then, I only have it in B tier because it is kind of limited to a lot of things, and it doesn't. It's not very in depth with mechanic wise. Like it's pretty easy to pick up, and there's not too much to outplay other people.
Yeah. Yep.
Heavy bowgun thoughts?
You know what? I'm actually throwing this in C tier. We're not going straight down to despicable or dog shit or D tier, whatever.
I wasn't going.
The heavy bowgun, you're super mobile, which is a downside in the way it feels, but you do so much damage. You have a counter. I think it's like the I don't even know what it's called, but yeah, the counter shot, which can be useful and have some skill to it. You have both of the little circles that you put in front to modify the damage depending on what type of monster is in front of you, how big it is, how small it is, what type of damage it's affected by. You have some more intricacy to this weapon than you do with the light bow gun, which is why it's not an absolute poo-poo tier. But it's still just like a bow gun. It's like you're playing Call of Duty, except you have a minigun instead of a regular weapon.
Yeah, I pretty much.
Although the sticky in Rise was absolutely broken, and it's still broken in Sunbreak with the amount of damage you can do. So, always happy to see those guys joining the lobby.
Yeah, I pretty much 69% plus 31% agree with you here. It is C tier for me as well, and I think I had it there in my original tier list too, where it's not despicable because I, for whatever reason, just have an attraction to it. For me, it was like everyone used the light bow gun in Rise. It was the light bow gun and the longsword, and so that just threw me off. It turned me off from it because everyone used it. Whereas the heavy bow gun, it was more unique. Like not many people used it as much as the light bow gun, and it had like very specific situations where it shined above every other weapon, where it used the sticky ammo on certain monsters, and so that was a very attractive thing to me. Where I wanted to learn this weapon to be able to use it for specific monsters, just absolutely destroy them, and have some fun playing it. But the reason why it's only in C tier is because when I actually did play it, I felt awful. Especially being a dual blades main, it felt very slow. The counter shot, which I thought looked sick, didn't feel very satisfying. Like, yeah, you would counter it, and then you do the backflip and do the shot, and that was okay, but you didn't hit him for like 1,000. You hit him for like 300, 400. It didn't feel powerful when you did the counter shot. And it also didn't have a massive effect or anything, so like they could have enhanced that specific counter. They have added some new things, like the setting sun, I think, is a really cool looking sort of circle where you shoot through it, but again, you're not doing much besides just shooting through a circle. And then
It's more about when you're putting down the circle, but yeah.
Yeah, it's cool when you put it down like you're Doctor Strange, and then you've got the counter charge and things like that. So they've added some new stuff to make it a little more fun, but it probably still has the same issues of where if you want to move around, you're not going to. You're just going to walk around like you're fucking Salvador from Borderlands 2, and you're going to be a slow, short, fat fuck, and that's just not fun to me. I also never got used to switching the ammo types. That just felt, it didn't necessarily feel counterintuitive, but I didn't want to learn it. And I do have it in C tier as well. It could be higher now in Sunbreak just because of meta-wise. It's so good. It's probably the best weapon, and it shreds monsters. Like every time I see a gun, or what am I saying? A heavy bowgun player join the lobby, I immediately get a grin on my face because I'm like, we're gonna kill this motherfucker fast, and that is what the heavy bowgun does. It does it in a boring fashion, but it does what it needs to do, and so it's C tier for me.
Yep. My next weapon is the longsword.
No, I think we should save that one. Well,
Save it for last?
Yeah, save it for last where it's supposed to go. I have bow next, so we can just knock out the bows.
Shocker. Out of left field. bow is SS tier in Sunbreak. Shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, oh, you said the same thing about the Lipoguns and the heavy bow guns. They're all just sitting back doing the same thing. No. No. Have you seen the new bow gameplay? It's literally you change out charging sidestep for dodge bolt, and you're using spread bows, and you're using close range with blade scale hone that gives you a 10% bonus to close range ammo or coatings, and you are in their face all the time. You are in their face, dodging the attacks with dodge bolt to get to maximum charge in their face literally all the time. Dodging and weaving in between their attacks. It's pretty much exactly like the dual blades. And I know that's blasphemous to you, but
it is.
It feels so good when you get those dodge bolts off and you're literally in the monster's face the whole time, and I'm talking about the bow. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it still has the bow was nerfed to Sunbreak, which is deserved because it did insane damage. But the spread was not nerfed as much. So everyone's going to spread. Everyone's in the face using dodge bolt, dodging back and forth. They're animation canceling stake thrust with the dodge bolt into an animation cancel rapid shot with the animation canceled power shot. It's the movement on the bow is so clean. It's unexplainable. It just feels so smooth to play, and it's intuitive. Once you get the hang of the dodge bolts, you're feeling great. You're feeling on top of the world, and you're not sitting back like a bowgun is. And it's just the best of both worlds.
God, you got me so hyped up. You're right. You're right. It's fucking amazing. It's going in C tier, baby.
Fuck you.
Listen.
Fuck you. Bow is S tier. Bow is S tier.
Listen, the bow is just like the heavy bowgun to me, where
it's not though. Go look at the gameplay.
Just listen, goddammit. My issue with the bow.
Go ahead.
My issue with the bow.
Go ahead.
Is that it could be just like the dual blades, but you're using a bow. Like, we're playing God of War, which you guys are going to get some great content for that. But we're playing God of War right now. And who uses the bow? Aiden, best friend? It's fucking Kid. And that's what his name is. His name is Kid. And
his name is Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Boy.
Atreus.
No, it's Kid.
No. His name is Atreus.
No, we call him Boy.
Okay.
So, Boy uses the bow. And that guy is the size of a twig, soaking wet, and it's just such a disgusting, despicable, like, I want to throw up on my mouth by how pussy-ing you're playing this. And that is exactly how I see a bow player. Now look, obviously in Rise it's completely different the way the bow's used. And Sunbreak specifically, like in Rise, I remember watching it, very similar, you're kind of far away. I did see, like, when you did the jump, when you were in the air attacks, like, that was kind of cool to just be very high up in the air and shooting down bows from there. But again, you're still using the bow, you're still far away from the fight. I was watching...
far away.
I know.
Sunbreak.
I know. I was watching a speedrun just now. Like, yes, he's basically right in the face, doing a little bit of left and right, and just laying down arrows. And that is cool. Like, I do see how people could like it. And and meta-wise, utility-wise, it works because it kills monsters fast and it's good on a hunt. So... part of me wants to put it something like ARS because of that playstyle, the way it's looking, and the ARS. But I'm standing firm for all my boys out there who agree with me on this. And that weapon is for fucking losers. That weapon is for absolute morons who can't use any melee weapons because they're not ballsy enough to do it. And if you use a bow...
You can't use the bow because... You can't use the bow spread shot because you're not ballsy enough.
Dude, I feel like my dick shrinks into my stomach when I use this weapon. I just feel so powerless. I feel like...
because you're trash, kid! You are actually dog!
Probably, but for me, it's just the... It could be just like the dual blades, and it does look good. It does look good, but it's... it's just not as, you know, magisterial for me. You know, it's not as despotic. It's just kind of unaggressive for what my mental thinking is for it, even though it probably isn't. It just feels incompetent. And so that frail, inept, unfit, useless fucking weapon, to me, goes in C tier. Now look, I could have put it in Despicable. I mean, I had it in Despicable, my old tier list, just like the Lipogun, where I was like, if you use this weapon, fuck you, everybody uses it, it's trash, it melts monsters, it takes no skill, all these things. But watching it now, I mean, it does look very fun. Skill. It does look like a lot of fun and everything else, and so I do want to put it higher. So mentally, guys, if there's one thing to disagree on in this video, it's probably going to be this bow, and I can see that. So know that I'd be willing to put it up in S or A, but I mean my build, you know, I'm built differently, as they say. I just can't do it. It's got to stay C, in the bottom of C.
No. See, okay. Everything he just said. It's just false. The bow is amazing. Everything about it is amazing. It just doesn't have a one big hitting move, which is the downside. But it's still an SS tier weapon.
I mean, again, to each their own. I'm not upset that you have it that high. I just myself can't put it there. I know a lot of people probably will, and that's okay. Gun Lance. S. Top of S.
Ooh.
So, Gun Lance, for me, was I know I said the Insect Glaive was my baby. This is my baby. Alright? Dual Blades, you know, God himself built these weapons for me to use and to eradicate monsters with. But I married the Gun Lance in a way. And it was one of my later discoveries of weapons. Like, I haven't played, we should probably mention that too. I haven't played Greatsword, haven't even gone on a hunt with Hunting Horn or the bow, or I did one bow quest. But some of these weapons I haven't even gone on a hunt with. And the Gun Lance was one of the later ones that I went on a hunt with. And I liked it for a couple reasons. One, watching people play with it looked like it was a lot of fun with the blast dash and some other things. And two, as I was touching on earlier, it was just super underappreciated and underutilized, undervalued. People did not like this weapon, and it makes sense. It makes sense. Speedrun wise, it was horrible, if not the worst. I think it was the worst. Meta wise, it was trash. No, it was not good against any monster over another weapon. It was just a horrible, horrible weapon. And I thought that's because and my conceptions about it were like it was horrible, and it also was boring to play. That it just didn't do damage. I thought it was like the Lance where you just poke and do some shelling, and then like you kind of just stay there. But it's not. And to my surprise, it became my second favorite weapon in Rise and my second favorite weapon in Sunbreak. It is super addicting to play. I haven't played it nearly as much as I should have in Sunbreak, but it's probably my second most hours put into a weapon, and it's top of S. I love so much. I don't know where I was going with that. I love this weapon so much. Okay, it has it all. It's got multiple play styles, and it just fits who I am. It is super frustrating and super difficult to use at times, but that's what the beauty of it is, right? Where the animations are so long to do, but if you're good with it, you can finesse it, and there's a lot of skill gap to basically managing the evade extender 3 on it, and basically just backpedaling or using blast dash, you know, shielding at the right times. Like, there's a million different tools at your disposal with this weapon, and a lot of them are slower, but you can really finesse with it a lot. And there's a million different play styles. You can do the blast dashing around and pull it off for full burst combo. You can do worm stick cannon. There's now the bullet barrage, which is the DPS combo, which is super fucking orgasmic to pull off. So I love the Gun Lance. When I just want to fuck around on a hunt and just enjoy myself and kind of laugh and maybe get destroyed by a monster and clip it, I'm probably going to use the Gun Lance. And before Sunbreak, a lot of it was like ground splitter into the full burst combo, like the overhead smash into the full burst, and just keep doing it, and then blast dashing, do that combo, and that was super fun to me. And then now that they've added in the bullet barrage, and they've added in some other things as well, it has just only made the weapon even better to me, as well as I think it's made it like actually kind of viable, you would say. Like
Yeah.
it actually kind of has a place now where you can do something with it. Hail Cutter to me is a really cool looking move, but it's tragic that basically you have to swap it out for Ground Splitter, and it's just not as good still. And Guard's Edge, it's not my favorite counters. Like, I'm not a huge fan. I think that regenning the sharpness is kind of a interesting aspect of it, but it's not like the Shrouded Vault from the Dual Blade that just gets me going. But the Bullet Barrage definitely does, and Ground Splitter is just a move that you can constantly stay on top of a monster with. Blast dashing around, you can style however you want and completely pull their pants down. So I love this weapon in all the possible ways. Corn Popper. I mean, what else is there to say?
I don't know, but I am torn.
Oh, and it's a bit of a troll now, which I love because of the Bullet Barrage. But I haven't used it nearly enough, but the Bullet Barrage does the hunting horn bullshit where it knocks you over, and the difference is you actually do a lot of damage with it, and it's your main DPS combo, so you're going to be doing that a lot to people, and I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, that is annoying. Anyway, I would throw this weapon. I am torn between A and B tier because this weapon is fun with the blast dash and the shelling and the full burst and the bullet barrage that came in Sunbreak. It even has the reverse blast.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Which is also fun.
It's a shame that doesn't do a lot of damage though, or doesn't have a lot of viability.
It does. It has some.
I guess, yeah. I mean,
and what was I saying? Oh yeah. It's a really fun weapon to play.
It's outlandish. It's preposterous. It's ridiculous. Unthinkable, absurd, fantastic. Go ahead.
All of those combined.
Yep.
And in Rise is just lacking on the damage. In Sunbreak, it's in a lot better place on the damage, and Bullet Barrage is super cool, super fun to pull off, although god damn it, do I hate it when a fucking Gunlance player comes flying in and blasts everything. He just literally full dumps his load on my face and sends me flying back.
But that's what I like about that. If you notice, my three favorite weapons, Dual Blade, Gunlance, and Instaglaive, they all have that similar playstyle where it's like fly at the monster and pull off a combo that styles on them or get shit on. And I love that playstyle about it because you can blast dash into a monster and get completely bitch slapped backwards, and to me that's hilarious. Or you could basically blast dash around your teammates and then pull off a massive fucking bullet barrage and look like a god. So there's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think I'm ultimately going to throw this in B because I have so many weapons in A, but it could definitely be a solid A tier for me.
Yeah. I mean, I already know my takes are hot on a lot of things, and not to say that yours aren't, but people are going to look at this tier list, probably just skip the first hour because they're going to be like, we don't want to see the talk, we don't care about the discussions, and they're going to go to the end and be like, are these guys serious? What are they?
These
smoking?
guys actually stupid?
What are they smoking right now? And that's why you guys have to listen to the whole video to understand our reasonings behind them, because most of these rankings are not about meta. They're not about how good the weapon is.
They're really not, because if you want to go see which weapon is the best, go watch another one.
Yeah.
But if you want to see which weapon is the best feeling, the most fun to play, and does a decent amount of damage, then you're in the right place.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to know how to die 1,000 times in Elden Ring, it's all there on this channel. Go ahead.
All right, I have the Sword and Shield next.
Okay, we can do that.
All right. Sword and Shield. Now, I know this is going to be a little different take than what I was saying before with it not doing a lot of damage. That's because my build was literally the worst.
I assumed.
But Sword and Shield is SS tier. Another shocker. Not as out of left field as the bow, but Sword and Shield is SS tier. There are so many different builds you can run with this weapon. You can go Elemental. You can go Knockdown. You could go Dereliction. You could go Mail of Hellfire. You could go Bloodlust. And it's just, they're not only in the builds, but in the playstyles as well. Like, Falling Shadow is still good. Shield Bash looks cooler and does knockout damage, but it's still good. Metsu is always going to be amazing, and you can use any move you want on the Sword and Shield. None of them are absolutely terrible because they got rid of that absolutely dog shit X combo.
I gotta go take a piss for a second. You keep on.
Yeah. It's just the master of everything. And with what's it called? Bloodright? You can literally be in the monster's face 24/7. This weapon can literally turn into fucking bully mode for you. You're gonna be in his face 24/7, and when he finally limps away from you enough for just out of your reach, you're getting right back in there with Shield Bash, and you're in their face again, just ass blasting him 24/7. I every time I played this weapon, I literally felt like I was bullying the monster.
You were bullying the monster, you said?
Yes, the Sword and Shield is bully mode. You're in their face, smacking them with the shield, hitting them with the sword, and the Shield Bash is amazing for closing the distance, so when you inevitably knock their ass on the ground or make them stumble or trip, or they're limping away, you Shield Bash right after them, get right in their face again, and knock them out again. And the one problem I had was that it did not do enough damage. I was hitting for like 37 per hit, and with the new build that I have, that worry is gone. And you can throw Bloodright on this, have infinite healing. You could throw Dereliction, and you can use both stances of Dereliction. You can use the Elemental for the sword and the raw and stun power for the shield, and you can do anything. It's the jack of all trades, and it is actually amazing to play.
Yeah, I was gonna put it in A. Like I had an A+ tier in my old video, and I was gonna put it there, but I think I'm okay with putting it S, because one thing I love about Gunlance and Sword and Shield, and what you'll sort of see, what makes them so amazing, is that they've got shields on their weapon as part of the kit, but you're not really using it. Now, you're using the Shield Bash when you use the combo in the Metsu, but like you're not holding the shield just to shield. Like there's so much utility on these weapons, on the Gunlance and the Sword and Shield, to where you almost forget to just hold down the trigger and shield at times. Whereas with the Lance, a lot of times you're that's a big part of it. You're just going to shield things. You're going to try and insta-block things, and it's a big component of it. Whereas these, it's got so much going on with it where you forget to even use the defensive playstyle because you're just constantly wailing on monsters. And I do like the sword and switch. What is it? Sword and Shield a lot. I like. I found this out when I did one of the arena quests, and I basically had to pick a weapon, and the dual blades wasn't an option, so I just did Sword and Shield. And when I started blocking the berry off, I was kind of giggling, laughing all the way to the bank, like, fuck this guy, he can't touch me. And then I went into the training mode, and I looked up YouTube videos. I was like, oh, so it's not just having fun shielding and deflecting monster attacks, it's also doing the Falling Shadow and spamming that over and over again. Even though it's not necessarily like a massive DPS thing, it's still fun. You're flying around like you're an Insight Glaive player. You're doing some Falling Shadows. You have the on the ground, whatever. What's that combo on the ground? Or it's
the X combo, the A combo, the Shield Bash.
I mean, you have the Shield Bash where you're bashing.
Oh, Perfect Rush.
Yeah, you've got
Perfect Rush is also amazing, and it does so much damage in Sunbreak.
You've got a built-in combo in Perfect Rush, which is really fun to pull off when a monster's down. You've got, of course, he's touched on it, but the ultimate move in the Metsu Shorigeki, which is one of the most satisfying moves to pull off in the entire game. Like it's up there with some dual blade type stuff. It's just such a satisfying moment when like you kind of have to perfectly time a head counter right when the monster's charging you or roaring, and when you get to instantly KO the monster, like nothing beats that feeling. So even though it's got the shield, it's not a big component. It's not necessarily defensive. You've got a ton of different playstyle options and a ton of different utilities in the build, and you can play it a bunch of different ways. So it is great for me. It's an S tier. I don't play it nearly enough, just because like, but if I'm going between dual blades and that, I'm probably doing dual blades. But that's not necessarily a slight to it. It's just that I'm so up the dual blades ass. But I do think it's S tier, and it's behind my gun lance and my insect glaive, but it is still S tier.
I forgot what the. Oh, so the three new ones are the Twin Blade, which you should literally always be using. The Destroyer Roll, which isn't that great, but it still has its uses, especially with Blood Right healing off of broken parts.
Yeah.
And Shield Bash, which is just feels amazing to use. You can literally use any move on this weapon except for the normal X combo. I would always use Twin Blade combo. It's just better in every way.
Yeah.
But it's just so versatile.
It is. I agree. I'm a fan of it. Solid weapon, and I respect you if you use it. I don't necessarily like. I don't. It's not like a light bow gun or a bow when I see you and I'm like, this guy. I do have some respect for you if you use it, especially if you're pulling off Metsus on the monster and just absolutely world starring. The next, second to last, is the Charge Blade.
Man, I'm going to throw this in A tier. Now remember, I don't have an S tier, but this is definitely a solid A tier weapon. And the amount of damage that you can do with Ultra Element Discharge is actually disgusting. It makes me want to vomit. But everything about this weapon is pretty much awesome. It's really in depth, and it's got guard points, which you can go into Ultra Element Discharge right off of it. And it has a shield for safety. And it has two modes. It has the heavy hitting mode, and it has the massive, big banger of a hit called the Ultra Element Discharge, which just absolutely destroys. And then it has the sword mode, which, I mean, doesn't really do that much damage, but once you get the elemental charge on the sword, it's pretty decent. The new moves added for it aren't that great, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, one of them's called Guard Edge, I think, or the one that replaces Counter Peak Performance. Ready Stance. That's what it's called. Ready Stance is okay. Counter Peak Performance just does way more for you in recharging your files, but it's definitely usable in some scenarios. Follow-up Firing Pin is what you should be running all the time, but I mean, you don't really see the benefits like right off the bat. Air Dash, I mean, unless I'm missing something, this move just is not great. So the moveset doesn't really change that much from Rise to Sunbreak, but the damage definitely does. They bumped up the elemental damage, and now you're swinging. And I want to get back into this weapon just because it's so much fun to learn. But there's just so many weapons that I want to use right now.
Yeah, I've got it A tier as well. I've got it only A tiers are Switch Axe and Charge Blade, which I think is fitting. They're those kind of morph play styles where you're balancing two different types of weapons and you're constantly switching between them. Maybe no. Yeah, it is with the Charge Blade. And this is one of those weapons that, like, it could have been SS tier for me if I really grinded out, because I wanted to play this weapon badly, and I did for a while. Like, I thought it was amazing to learn. Like, it's probably the most complicated to learn with the guard points and all the different potential play styles. So it's very complicated and in-depth with the mechanics, and it takes a while to learn and master, and that attracted me a lot to it. But there was just something about the counter peak performance. Like maybe I didn't play it enough to nearly master it, but whenever you did the counter peak and then you'd counter the first hit and then they'd follow it up with a second and you get hit while you're pulling off your ultimate element discharge. Like that shit bothered me too much and was very frustrating.
Yeah, that's why you're supposed to shield the first attack when you know they're going to do a double hit and then counter peak.
Yeah, like if I had played it more, that wouldn't have been a bother, but it was because I was new to it. When you do pull off the ultimate element discharge and you hit it right on their face or right where it's supposed to,
it feels so good.
It does feel so good. Like it's one of the best feeling weapons. Axe Hopper is super fun. Like even though it's not necessarily meta, seeing the Axe Hopper over and over again is just super fun. Like you're basically launching up this giant swinging weapon and you're coming down and dropping a crater on him and doing a ton of elemental damage. It's very fun, and I respect a lot of people who use it and especially can use it well. So it is an A tier for me. I can't go any higher because my personal experience with it wasn't that fun, and I definitely won't go any lower because I think that it has compared to a Lance, there's so much going on with this versus that, and yeah, it's very satisfying to use.
Yeah. Although Axe Hopper is a lot more meta now in Sunbreak, I've even seen speedrunners running it.
Yeah, I did see like someone guys would warm it in 5 minutes, and he was using a lot of Axe Hopper.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's just really solid, really in depth, and I'm just not good enough now to put it in SS tier.
Yeah, that's where it is. Like, it's only the only reason it's only as low as or not as high as anything else than A tier is because I'm not good with it. Like if I was really good with it or I was at least better, it'd be higher because I'd have a lot more fun on it. I'm just not good enough to enjoy it enough.
Yep.
All right, we saved the worst for last. I kind of wish there was a different tier than Despicable. Like just renaming it to dog shit would even be more fitting. But the Longsword. When I first started Sunbreak or Rise, and I told Aiden, you need to get this game, like it's gonna be amazing. And he didn't have it that night, and I was playing it, and I was in Khmer Village. I started with the longsword weapon. Like I didn't play it or use it, but like I had it on my body. It was showing, and I thought it was so fucking cool to look at. It was this giant little katana weapon, and I felt like a badass hunter. And so, looks wise, it's a very great weapon. But there's so many things to talk about with this weapon. Like, I think that the playstyle is kind of embarrassing. It's like
elaborate on that point.
Every speed run that I watch, it's the same. It's the same, and it's you. I don't know the moves. Okay, I'm sure you can elaborate on them, but it's agitating, it's chagrining, it's discomforting to see the playstyle where you basically sit there, you wait to counter the attack, then you slide through them and do like a little slash, and then it does a lot of damage, and then you can kind of follow it up with whatever that move is where you come down on them and you do
Orion kick.
Yeah.
Into Spirit Helmbreaker.
Yeah, that combo. It's like basically the same combo from Rise to Sunbreak. You do the exact same thing over and over again, and I'm sure it's fun for a while, but it to me does not look it does not interest me in any way. There's other issues with it. Everyone plays it. I mean, it's basically all the fucking anime fans, which I'm not gonna take shots at them because I am one myself. But like, it's just everybody plays this weapon. It's probably the most common weapon, even above a heavy bow gun. Still in Sunbreak, it's probably the most popular. You see it everywhere. And base Rise, what really annoyed me and annoyed a lot of players is that it flinched you a lot with their moves, so like it would knock you over, even though it's not as like penetrable or whatever the word is for a gun lance bullet barrage would do. Like even though it's not going to be as that intrusive, it's still annoying in every single way. I don't like the damage from it. I'm sure it has good speed runs and everything else, but I feel like a longsword player is not helping me out in the hunt. Besides just taking up space, and I don't have a lot of good things to say about it. Besides, the weapon designs do look cool when you're running it. Just from a visual standpoint, it's very fascinating. But the playstyle wise, the people who the type of people who play this weapon, I mean, I don't want to get banned on YouTube,
So I'm throwing this in B tier. I know. The third out of left field in the video. B tier because of what it can be and not what it is right now. Right now, all you're going to see is people still spamming that same move, the EI Spirit Slash and EI other one. You're just seeing them spam the same three moves: Spirit, Helmbreaker, and both the EIs. And nothing has really changed except for different build from Rise, which is disappointing. But that's only the meta we're talking about.
True.
I mean, once you get like into the non-meta area, this thing could actually be super fun. And I think the main fun factor of it is the sacred sheath, along with that one super quick counter that costs a wire bug. That no, it's the sacred sheath counter that you can go straight into the last hit of the spirit combo. But anyway, there's a play style that I'm working on that all you do is spam the sacred sheath combo, and if the monster attacks you, you just do the counter while you're charging it up, and then you go straight into the last hit of the Spirit Slash combo, and then you're at the next bar. You can also do the super quick counter that uses the wire bug, and move you to the next bar, and then once you get into the red bar, you're spamming Sacred Sheath slash again, and you're pulling it off, and it is a massive hit. It actually does so much damage, and it looks cool too. But that playstyle, it's just not meta, so it can't bump it anything above B tier. But the meta playstyle for Longsword, I'd say it's a lot lower. It is boring. It is not fun for me to play, and it's not fun for me to see other people play. But if you go outside the meta, and granted it doesn't do as much damage, but it still does really great damage, then you're having a lot more fun. And I could see why people play this weapon.
Yeah, like, again, we're here for the views. Everyone's going to click at the end of this video and think I don't want to say that word, but they're going to think I'm the biggest dipshit on the planet looking at my rankings. I've got Gunlance and S. The only one who's going to fucking agree is Rurikon. And I love the Gunlance. I have pride in dual blades and instant glaive and everything else, and I know that people have pride in their own weapons as well, so I'm not necessarily like opposed to hearing other people's opinions on the weapons and hearing how you can make the weapon fun or alpha or just like an interesting playstyle. Like, I'm sure that there's ways for even the Lipogun to be that way. It's just from my experience, when I go on hunts, when I tried using weapons myself, how I felt about them. And I even had Longsword, like I had Longsword and Greatsword in B tier on the same tier. I think maybe even A tier. I had them both there, even though I never played them, just because of factors that I thought could be potentially be fun. Like, I was thinking, oh, maybe even in Sunbreak when you use Harvest Moon, like it'll be so insane and things like that. But I have never used the weapon, and I don't think I ever will, and I hate you if you do. So
Pretty strong words.
Strongly dislike you if you do. You're not invited to my wedding if you use this weapon.
This weapon has so much fun potential, but the maximum damage way to use it is just so boring. Yeah. I really just want to get this build going and see how it is actually, because spamming the Sacred Sheath combo, it just looks awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I'm sure someone could send a clip or talk about a playstyle or a build that makes it super entertaining, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. Like, I might even play it myself. And I know that the Longsword has that potential. Like, there are some weapons to me that I just don't think have that potential, like the light bowgun, even the heavy bowgun. But there's some weapons where I don't think it has that potential.
You just named two.
I mean, I was gonna say the lance, but I like the lance even though it doesn't really have a lot of potential. So there's weapons that can be that way, and I'm not necessarily opposed to the longsword, but I'm here so you guys get tilted in a way, and for you guys to show me that I'm wrong. I mean, I got done lance in S tier, right? Like everyone makes mistakes. So
No. This is the definitive.
this is the definitive objective or subjective.
Well,
objective
no.
list.
Mine is with hammer 2 tiers above everything else, but yours is okay as well, I guess.
Yeah. As long as we're in agreement on some of these that we were passionate about. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I was like, this is gonna be a short one, only 14 weapons. Like, in half an hour, hour and a half later. That's called passion, though, ladies and gentlemen. That is called passion. When you're at this point and you talk about the weapons like this, and it motivates.
There's just way more to say about each individual weapon than each individual.
I'm sure when I talk about God of War, that's going to be like a 3-hour video when I finish it. I'm going to spend an hour talking about one fight. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Like, subscribe. Comment in the comments down below what you thought and and just in general your favorite weapons, your least favorite weapons, and we can chat about it. But thanks for watching.